Fenar sends Nyx to split the heroes. Kael and Lyra confront danger, while Thorn, Seraphine, and Riven face other threats. Subscribe to Turmoil Studio to follow the story. Dawn crept over Terenfall reluctantly, its light dulled by ash and lingering smoke. The city stood intact, yet altered streets scarred, towers cracked, banners hanging heavier than before. Fires smoldered where they should have died out. Civilians emerged slowly from shelters and broken halls, eyes scanning rooftops and alleyways, not for enemies but for intent. Survival had bought time. Time demanded answers. In the Eastern Supply District, a convoy stood halted. Crates bearing the royal sigil rested untouched atop medieval wagons, their seals unbroken. Soldiers formed a loose perimeter, hands never straying far from their weapons. Medieval civilian gathered at first by coincidence, then by gravity. Whispers spread faster than reason. They held this back. They chose who eats. They always do. A man stepped forward, gaunt with exhaustion. "My daughter hasn't eaten in 2 days," he said quietly. Not accusation. Fact. A soldier opened his mouth. No answer came. The silence tightened the crowd. Kyle arrived moments later, boots crunching over broken stone. He took in the scene in a single glance, the stalled convoy, the crowd's posture, the soldiers' hesitation. This was not panic, it was calculation. "Lower your weapons," he said. His voice was calm, firm, unyielding. The soldiers hesitated, then obeyed. A ripple passed through the civilians. Surprise, not relief. "No supplies are being withheld," Kale continued, stepping forward unarmed. "Distribution was delayed due to structural instability from the siege. Nothing more." A woman laughed bitterly. "That's what you said last time." The word struck deeper than any blade. Commander Edrion pushed through the crowd, jaw tight. He leaned close to Kale. The order came from the Citadel. Direct invocation of Crown authority. Before dawn. No consultation. No coordination. Kyle looked back at the civilians, at faces that no longer separated protector from ruler. Something subtle fractured inside him. By mid-morning, banners unfurled across the inner districts. Medieval soldiers repositioned not along walls, but corridors. Routes narrowed. Access became deliberate. The crown was asserting presence. King Aeorian's soul crest emerged onto the inner balcony as horns sounded not an alarm, but announcement. His robes were immaculate, untouched by siege or smoke. "People of Terenfall," his voice carried, measured and absolute. "This city endured because order endured. Some knelt instinctively, others did not. Fear has tested us," Aeorian continued. "But fear does not rule this realm. Authority does." Lyra watched from the edge of the square, bow unstrung. "They're not listening," she murmured. "They're measuring him." Riven scanned the perimeter. "No clear exits," he said quietly. "This isn't reassurance." Thorn's jaw tightened. "It's containment." "And so," the king declared, raising a hand, "I reclaim direct oversight of all civic and military operations until stability is assured." The announcement landed heavily. Across the city, orders stalled. Commanders hesitated between crown and field protocol. Patrol routes overlapped inefficiently. Supplies arrived late or too early. No sabotage was visible. That was the problem. Kael convened the team beneath a fractured western archway as dusk approached. Lantern light flickered across scarred faces. "This was slow response," Lyra said. "We survived because we adapted, and we'll lose the city if discipline collapses," Thorn countered. "People need structure. People need trust," Riven replied from the shadows. "And we're bleeding it." Seraphine said nothing. The child within her pulsed uneasily, not in warning but recognition. Something is watching us, she finally whispered. Not guiding, not attacking. Measuring, Riven finished. Above the city, far beyond banners and walls, Nyx stood motionless atop a fractured spire. Her armor caught moonlight without reflecting it. She did not draw a weapon. She did not speak. Her gaze traced civilian movement. Guard hesitation. Command delay. Elsewhere, Celine observed the same patterns from another angle. Interest sharpened but restrained. Neither intervened. By nightfall, the city felt wrong. Not quieter. Tenser. Guards lingered too long at posts. Others abandoned them early. Civilians clustered unpredictably. Rumors spread faster than messengers. They don't fear the shadows anymore, Lyra said softly as they moved through the streets. They fear us choosing wrong. Commander Edrion confronted Kael near the inner districts. Who do we answer to now? Kael had no answer. Crown, city, people. Each demanded a different loyalty. Far beyond mortal sight, within shadowed stone untouched by war, Vaynar stood alone. He did not watch Terenfall. He felt it. A fault line has formed, he said quietly. No command followed. No order was given. Pressure, once applied correctly, required only time. Back in the city, Seraphine rested her hand over the child's light. Its pulse steadied, not with comfort, but resolve. Terenfall had survived the siege. Now it faced something more dangerous. Choice. The night did not settle evenly across the city. Some medieval districts fell into uneasy quiet, while others buzzed with restless movement patrols doubling back on themselves. Civilians shifting shelters without orders, lanterns burning long after curfew. The rhythm that once governed the city had dissolved into something irregular, improvisational, strained. Kael walked the inner ramparts alone. Below him, streets twisted through shadow and torchlight, their geometry unchanged yet unfamiliar. He could sense the city listening not to horns or commands, but to itself. Every step echoed with unspoken questions. Who decides? Who bears the cost? Who answers when certainty fails? From the western quarter, raised voices cut briefly through the night. Not screams. Disagreement. Soldiers argued with merchants over access routes. A patrol halted another patrol, each holding contradictory orders stamped with the same seal. Authority was multiplying instead of clarifying. Kael stopped, gripping the stone parapet. This was how fractures spread, not with force, but with hesitation repeated often enough to feel justified. Elsewhere, Lyra moved through the rooftops with quiet precision. Her steps light, her eyes sharper than they had been during the siege. She watched people more than shadows now. How they clustered, how they avoided uniformed figures, how glances lingered on banners with something approaching resentment. They're recalculating, she realized. Not fleeing, not rebelling, measuring risk. Below her, two civilians slipped through an alley that patrols no longer covered, not because it was unsafe, but because it hadn't been assigned. Efficiency had given way to assumption. Riven noticed it too. He stood near the outer districts, leaning against a fractured column, eyes half closed as he listened not to sound, but to timing. Orders overlapped. Delays stretched. Response windows widened just enough to matter. No enemy would exploit this yet, but something would. Thorn drilled squads through the night, breaking formations deliberately, forcing officers to adapt without guidance. Some protested, others faltered. A few adjusted faster than expected. This city's too used to being told where to stand, he muttered. That habit's going to get people killed. Near the inner sanctum, Seraphine remained awake long after others slept. The child's light pulsed steadily now, not erratically as it had during the siege. It felt attuned, listening alongside her, responding to stress points she could not name. It was not afraid. It was attentive. She placed her palm against the stone floor and felt the city's tension travel upward like a held breath. Whatever watched from above was no longer simply observing outcomes, it was observing decisions. At dawn, the Citadel gates opened again. King Aelryan convened a closed council, summoning commanders, magistrates, and guild heads with equal urgency. The chamber filled with voices before the king arrived, arguments overlapping, grievances sharpened by exhaustion. When Aelryan entered, silence followed. "Order has frayed," he said without preamble. "That ends today." He gestured, and new decrees were unfurled: restructured patrol authority, centralized supply oversight, temporary suspension of civilian councils. Each measure was logical in isolation. Together, they tightened like a fist. Commander Edrian spoke carefully. "Your Majesty, field adaptation kept us alive. Removing discretion creates accountability," Aelryan interrupted. "Something this city currently lacks." Eyes shifted, not toward the king, toward Kyle. Kyle felt the weight settle, without accusation being voiced. He had been visible. He had acted without waiting. The people trusted him not because of rank, but because he stood among them. That trust now had a cost. "This isn't about blame," Aelryan continued, tone calm but resolute. "It's about preventing fracture." Kale met the king's gaze. "Fracture isn't prevented by compression," he said evenly. "It's delayed." A murmur passed through the chamber. The king studied him for a long moment. "You speak as though certainty is optional." Kale did not look away. "I speak as someone who's watched certainty break." Silence returned heavier this time. The council adjourned without resolution. Outside, words spread quickly, distorted by fear and repetition. Some claimed the heroes were being sidelined. Others whispered that the crown planned to purge independent command entirely. None of it was fully true. All of it was close enough. By midday, a minor disturbance erupted near the southern quarter. Not an attack, an arrest. A civilian refused relocation orders. Guards intervened. Onlookers gathered. Someone shouted. Someone threw a stone. Steel flashed. No blood was spilled, but the sound carried. Kyle arrived too late again, not to stop violence, but to witness its near miss. The crowd dispersed quickly, shaken by how close it had come. "They're testing limits now," Lyra said quietly. "Ours and theirs." High above the city, Nyx shifted her stance for the first time since nightfall. The data unfolding below was not unexpected, but its pace was accelerating. "The fault is widening," Celine observed from afar, her voice carried through unseen channels. Nyx did not answer immediately. When she did, her tone was neutral. "They're choosing under pressure. That matters." "And the crown?" Celine asked. Nyx watched the Citadel banners ripple in the wind. "Authority resists adaptation. It always does." Far beyond even their sight, Vanar stood within shadowed stone, unmoving. The city's tension threaded outward like a signal. He did not interfere. He did not need to. Back in Terenfall, Kale stood once more on the ramparts as dusk fell again. Fires burned lower now, replaced by lanterns and watchlights. The city looked almost peaceful if one did not know where to look. Seraphine joined him silently. "The child is calm," she said. "That worries me," Kale nodded. Storms are calm before they break. Below them, the city continued to live hesitant, adaptive, uncertain. No walls fell, no enemy struck, but something fundamental had shifted. The siege had taught them how to endure. What came next would teach them what they were willing to become. And far above, unseen and patient, the shadows adjusted their expectations. The test was no longer whether Terenfall could survive. It was whether it could decide who it trusted before someone else decided for it.